Welcome to the Hope Unlocked podcast. I'm Kristen Kurtz, your host. I pray this episode is like a holy IV of hope for your soul. Please help me welcome Beth Fralick to the show. I'm so excited to have her here today. I know that this is going to be really powerful because the trial that it took for us to even get to this point is like wild. And we're like, nope, we're going to
Mm,
make this work today.
mm.
We actually just met. Gosh, was it 2 months ago? I can't even remember. It was within the
Back in
last two
April.
months
Hmm.
and wasn't planning to go to an event. And we ended up chatting, and I was like, oh my gosh, I just love this one. And I did ask her, I
Mm,
think even then, I was like, hey, would you
mm,
like to share your story on Hope Unlocked? So I
mm,
know you're going to be coming here with a powerful testimony to share with the world. And
mm.
before we do that, could you just share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So currently, I live in the Twin Cities, and that's how we met. We met at
Yeah.
a wellness event. We happened to sit right next to each other,
Yeah.
and it was really funny because we got talking on the topic of food and
Mhm.
what were you going to order and what was I going to order, and then it branched off into like, oh, well, I have these food allergies and I have these things, and it was funny how the conversation continued because I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, you are like you're the other version of me
Yep.
in so many ways.
Yep.
And so we just connected in that way. And so it's just funny how my particular journey and your journey and how our paths have crossed in such a way at this time. So for me, I have three children. I have a 6 year old, I have a 4 year old, and a 2 year old.
Yeah.
I am a teacher. I've been teaching for about 15 years. And once I started having children, I went down to part time teaching. So I just teach a few days a week. And then I also am consulting in the health and wellness space. I work with cancer clients and those with chronic illness. And that is something that came out of my own journey. So back in 2019, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer shortly after my son was born. And it was a very unexpected diagnosis. Through the years, I had multiple reoccurrences of cancer. um, I did Western medicine, I did alternative medicine, and I was just on a path of trying to understand why did I get cancer, and just processing and working through that while having young children. And in that journey, God brought me to a place of really shifting my focus off of my own health journey and what I needed to do to heal, but then also, well, how can I come alongside others and support others who are on a very similar journey as me? And I found that through my experience, there really wasn't a lot out there when it came to emotional or spiritual support. And I realized that when you go through chronic illness and when you go through cancer, it can be extremely isolating. And that is something that I didn't want others to have to experience. And so I developed a support group system where we meet biweekly, and I just create a quiet space, a space where people can either they can share about where they're at, what how their appointments have gone, um, what different decisions they have to make as far as treatments go or next steps. It's really open ended, honestly. And then I try to provide a time of support and encouragement where we can all encourage one another, we can pray for one another, we can give each other hope. So that all stemmed from my own personal experience of what was I felt like I really needed on my own journey to get through that really difficult time. So that's what I'm currently doing. And I'm working towards getting my functional medicine license and continuing to help support people that are going through chronic illness get to the root of their disease.
Yes. Well, I want to thank you for sharing. Like I love how you shared how, a lot of times when we walk through something, we have an opportunity, we have a choice to kind of turn around and help others. And I love
Mm,
how you
mhm.
just were so willing and obedient to, well, you had that stirring of like, there's nothing really out here that I needed, so I'm going to
Mhm.
create
Mhm.
something. I think that is just
Mhm.
beautiful. I want to kind of touch back to if you guys heard, she has two, 4, and 6 year old, right? So
Yes.
how old were your children at the time you were given this diagnosis?
Well, I actually had just had my son my
Mm.
oldest, and I was diagnosed about 2 weeks after having him.
Okay. So
Mhm.
like he was 2 weeks old.
Mhm. Mhm.
I recently heard that, a lot of times when you're given a diagnosis, there's usually a very accelerated like pathway that the medical system tries to put you on, and you don't really get a lot of time to think about next,
Yes.
next steps. Um,
Yes.
Tell me more about that because, gosh, I mean, my oldest is now 21 almost, and my youngest is almost
Mm.
18. So that was a long time ago, but I can still remember like those
Mm.
first couple weeks, first couple months of being a new mom for the first time, and just already you're tired. You're Tell us more about like what did that look like for you
Mm.
to experience this diagnosis at that point?
I mean, I don't know if words can really describe the feeling of getting a diagnosis like that. You're
Yeah.
in a state of shock, you're
Mhm.
in a state of denial, like
Yeah.
you're questioning, well, why me? I'm a young mom. I just had a baby. This isn't fair. So I
Yeah.
went through a number of different feelings and emotions and trying to process and work through that. And then even come to an understanding of, well, why do I have cancer? Like, what
Yeah.
did I do wrong to get cancer? And for me, I was married later on in life. I was so excited to be a mom. That's what I had always wanted to be. And then to get this diagnosis so shortly after having a child, I was like, this isn't fair. This is robbing me of one of the biggest dreams I've ever had. Now I can't even enjoy being a new mom because I have to think about this diagnosis. And so I just remember, yeah, just crying and being so angry and so afraid and angry at God, angry at my circumstances, and just like, I've already gone through so much in my life. Why do I now have to go through cancer on top of everything else?
Yeah.
So you go through, I think there's just a lot of indignation and righteous anger and
Yeah.
frustration. And so I went through that whole, that processing, and then you're in the midst of appointments and you're having sleepless nights because you just had a baby. And
Right.
my doctors were like, well, we want you to have surgery to remove your thyroid and then radiation. And so I'm thinking about this timeline. They're like, wanting me to schedule this. And I'm just like, I just had a baby. I can't think
Yeah.
about having a
Right.
surgery and then going, because surgery was going to be like a 10-day recovery where I couldn't like carry my son around. Um, and and then doing radiation after that, which was going to be another like 2 weeks that I couldn't be around him. And I'm like, this is a lot. I just had my baby. I just want to hold my baby and be able to establish breastfeeding. And
Yeah.
so I did tell my doctors after some time of processing and thinking through it, I was
Yeah.
like, I'm not ready to go into all of that. I just had my son. My body is recovering from a birth. It's
Yeah.
not in a state to go into surgery. So I
Yeah.
want some time. And so I did some research on breastfeeding and what was
Mhm.
like how difficult it can be to establish a breastfeeding relationship with your child, and how long it usually takes for them to catch on and develop a rhythm and an
Yeah.
understanding of how breastfeeding works, and then understanding flow and supply.
Yeah.
So I gauged from all my research between like 3 and 4 months is usually what it takes to really establish a healthy breastfeeding relationship with your child and to establish your flow. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to give myself 4 months, and I'm just going to focus on really connecting to my child and figuring out breastfeeding, how to be a new mom. I'm going to prepare for this surgery so I can go into it as best as I can mentally and physically. And we'll do that, and then we'll take the rest from there. So that's what I ended up doing. I had surgery 4 months after having my son, and it was a more invasive surgery than we had planned because it had
Really?
spread to my lymph nodes. So recovery was it was harder. Then we talked about treatments afterwards, and I prayed about it. I consulted with a number of different practitioners, and in the alternative world, and then getting another opinion from another oncologist, and we just decided that radiation wasn't the right choice at that time for me. So that was, it's just a whirlwind. Like, it is
Yeah,
very true. And that's something that I work with my clients, that I support is in Western medicine, they do have their protocols and they have their systems and they classify you and they put you through a system. And a lot of times it is very much based on convenience and timing for them.
right.
And it's not always putting into thought, well, what are your life circumstances? What do you have going on? Are you a young mom? Do you have care at home, to help you recover? Also, I mean, everything that we know about the body is that when you go through a surgery, you're getting antibiotics, you're getting anesthesia that shuts down your immune system. And
Yeah.
then to put you right into harsh treatments, your body is not going to be at a place to really
Mhm.
sustain and be at its best to help not only kill the cancer, but keep your body working and fighting and trying to get out all the bad. And
Yeah.
so I really advocate for my clients to obviously it's depending on the the cancer. There are some cancers you have to move more quickly on, but there are most cancers that you can take some time to really, get that initial diagnosis, process that, get
Yeah.
another opinion if needed, work with integrative care, alternative care to support your body so that it has the best outcome when it comes to surgery and recovery and then going into treatments. So I really try to bring education, awareness around those things and give clients a voice that they
Yeah.
do have a voice in their health journey. They don't have to follow all this, all of
Right.
the expectations of their oncology team. If it doesn't resonate with them or fit into what they feel like is best for their body, they have a right to say no or reevaluate or get another opinion.
Yes, that's so good. I wanted to really just highlight that for the listeners that, I just think back to some of my times before I like knew more about like holistic and functional medicine, naturopathic.
Mm,
I just kind of listened to the doctors and I just kind of did whatever they said because I thought, well, they know more than I do. And I think it's just really important for you guys to hear that you don't have to do, you don't have to do what they say.
mm,
You don't
mhm,
have to do what they say when they say you need to do something. Of course, pray about it. But, with Beth, she shared here like just having a brand new baby, and she's like, no, I'm actually going to take some time to establish breastfeeding with my child. And knowing what you knew, and thankfully you knew. And I think it's really hard because as somebody who's maybe not been trained, in medical system,
mhm,
to kind of kind of push against the system in a way, wouldn't you say? Have you
mhm,
found that to
mhm,
be challenging for some of the people that you've come alongside? At first, are they like, "Oh, I can like kind of push back a
mhm,
little bit?"
mhm. Yes, most often people come to me though at a place they're at a place already that they're like, I don't feel completely comfortable with the plan that's been given to me,
Okay.
or I I have some doubts or I have some questions, or is there another way? So a lot of times people already are coming to me with more of an open mind.
Yeah.
Um, or I have found, and what I do a lot of educating, where I put on my social media page, where I'm just educating and bringing awareness and giving
Mhm.
options and saying there are other things out there, or here are some other options that could be possible for your journey. It doesn't have to look the same as this other person you knew, or
Right.
you don't have to have the same outcome, or
Mhm.
and so sometimes people will just stumble across my things and say, that's interesting,
Yeah.
or they'll hear my story and say, oh, I didn't know that was an option, I didn't know that there
Mhm.
were other things that I could have done or should have done. Or so
Yeah.
it's all about exposure, and it's all about, I just really believe that, um, learning to listen to your intuition. God
Mm.
gives us wisdom. Like, if we
Yeah.
seek him and we're asking him, like, what should I do in this situation, or what is next, what is the right choice or right decision? And what's
Mhm.
unfortunate when it comes to cancer is there's so much fear,
Right.
and so a lot of our decisions are made out of fear.
Mhm.
And that's due to what we've seen in our society, like in our world, the exposure that we've had to cancer. And so when people hear the word cancer, they're like, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
I mean, that's generally like you're going to have a horrible, awful experience. You're going to lose your hair, like all worst case scenarios. So when you
Mhm.
get that initial diagnosis, you're immediately put in this place of fear. And how am I going to make it through this? How am I going to, oh, am I going to have this treatment or do that or make these choices or lose my job, lose this? And so we start operating out of a place of fear. And unfortunately, our doctors, and not all of them do this, and not even all of them, I don't believe, are doing it purposefully, but they put you in this, they also drive that fear. They encourage that fear in some ways of like, well, you need to deal with this now. This is urgent, or this is, and they like, if you don't do this, I mean, I've had clients come to me and say, yeah, I told my oncologist I'm stopping chemo, and he said, well, I probably won't see you in my office again. Like or they'll say, well, you're going to die. Like these are your only choices. Either do chemo or you're going to die, or you only have 4 months left to live. And sometimes doctors, it's like, I don't know, if it's out of frustration that they will say these things because their client is, and honestly, the more I learn about the medical system, I know a lot of it is driven by their superiors, like the pressure they have that if they don't keep us in a certain track doing X, Y, or Z, then insurance will stop paying, or they won't make the money that they need to make because we're not fitting in a certain lane per se. So there is pressure from oncologists that it's like if we don't fit within their framework and do what they say we need to do, they can get in trouble. And so I learned that from one of my
Right.
oncologists when I refused to do radiation. She basically was like, well, if you're not going to do it, I'm not going to work with you any longer. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Really?
Like she stopped. I was like, well, I just want to monitor. I want to I want to do ultrasounds regularly. I want to do lab work regularly. And if we start seeing things that are coming up that are questionable, then we talk about next steps. And she was
Right.
just like, it did everything she could to make it difficult for me to have those tests ordered and to read my tests and give me the information that I needed and be supportive. And so I ended up having to stop working with her. I was like, well, if you're not going to support me and the decisions I'm making for my body, I'm going to find a doctor that will.
Wow. And so how far were you into the journey at that point where she basically was kind of giving you an ultimatum in a way?
I was about 2 years, 2 years
Okay. Okay.
in working with her.
Okay. So how did
Mhm.
you at that point you basically broke up with your oncologist, right? So how did you did you get referral from somebody else? I think it's just very hard to find, and I'm just gonna say this, it's really hard to find good doctors. I know that there's good
Mhm.
doctors out there,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
how did you find, the next person that was willing to kind of go outside the box with you a little bit?
Mhm. Mhm. I actually found him through a friend.
Oh,
They said, "Oh, I really think you would like my endocrinologist. You should check him out." I read his bio. I reached out to him and said, "This is my history I've had of cancer. This is what I am doing currently to support my body and try to bring it to complete healing. I need a doctor who is not like willing to order the test and support me to keep monitoring and as I make different decisions regarding my cancer journey." And we had about an hour long consultation, and he was so gracious and kind and listened to my concerns. We went over my past history of cancer, and he gave his recommendations. And he was like, "This is what I would recommend, but the choice is up to you what you decide to do." And he's always been like that throughout this whole cancer journey, which is really amazing.
yeah.
But it is really hard to find. But I tell clients, I say, if you aren't comfortable with your oncology team or your oncologist or doctor, you're paying them. They're not paying you to come see them. You're paying them.
Right?
So if you're not happy, go find someone else and pay
Exactly.
them.
Right. It's interesting because I'm almost getting a vision of like, you go to get your hair cut and it's like, would you go keep going back to the same person who's like jacking your hair up? Like you'd probably want to go somewhere else. Like you keep saying like, no,
Hmm.
I want to keep my hair lo long, but they keep butchering your hair and you're like,
Mm.
no, I'm not happy with this. So I don't know. That's kind of the analogy that I know it's not the best analogy, but it's like, why would we keep going back to somebody that is not doing what we're asking, right? Or own
Mm.
choices, right?
Hmm. 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 And I definitely think, there has to be wisdom. There has to be that grace too. And that's something like I had worked with her about 2 years and I really did try to receive what she said. And every decision I make, I always step back and evaluate, is this
Yeah.
decision that I'm making being driven by fear or being
Mm,
driven by wisdom?
yeah.
And I think that's really important with whatever diagnosis you have or any, I guess, any decision that you have to make in life. You have to know what is driving that decision.
Yeah.
And so even if it is a hard choice, let's say my doctor suggests this treatment and I'm just like, nope, I'm not doing that. And I have to
Right.
reevaluate, wait, is that because I'm afraid? I'm
Mm,
afraid to do that
mhm,
that option.
mm,
If so, I then need to get before God and say, God, this is a really hard choice that I have to make. And I don't want to do what they're suggesting to do. But if that's what I need to do to get healthy and be healed, then give
mm,
me the grace to go through it and give me peace
right.
in that decision. And so it has been a learning process as I've gone through cancer to really not allow my feelings, my fear to drive the choices that I make about my body and to really lean in and ask God, what are you saying in this situation? What are you saying about my diagnosis? Because I think that when you go through cancer and you experience the fragility of life,
Mm,
and I think it's very easy to, sorry, I'm getting emotional about this.
like, okay.
um Take a deep breath.
Hmm.
It is very easy to allow your emotions to drive your decisions.
Hmm.
And it's very easy to allow then what others are saying, the fear, the doubts, the concerns to then weigh in on the choices that you're making.
Hmm.
And I think that's what I learned, is that I really have to make sure that I am listening and in tune with God. I am leaning into his word and his promises, and that I'm allowing that to guide
Yeah.
my journey.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's a really hard, I mean, maybe some people are a little bit stronger in their faith and more experienced in that, but that's a really hard thing to grow in and
Yeah.
to learn, to learn how to navigate.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm curious, like we all want to we all go to God first. Like that's ultimately like the focus, right?
Mm-hmm,
But we are gonna
mm-hmm,
have we need advisors in our life. We need people to help. Like I couldn't have my
mm-hmm.
baby
Yep.
on my own. Like I needed
Yeah. Yep.
somebody to help me birth. Just like, in your situation, you needed people to help you through the process. So,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
just from your own experience, did you find, and even looking back, I guess I would ask, since you were on, maybe a little bit more of a unconventional journey in some ways, did
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
feel like God was having you to maybe just share with a smaller group of people? Did you find yourself sharing, asking for prayer on a broad level? Like, how did your family come alongside you? I'm just kind of the community aspect, like the
Mm-hmm.
connection and the support to help like
Mm-hmm.
bolster you in your time.
Mm. So, like I said, cancer can be very isolating,
Mhm.
because a lot of people don't know how to handle these the emotions that come with cancer, the fears that come with cancer, the decision making, knowing like how do you support someone that has
Yeah.
this type of a diagnosis. And so there were a lot of people in my life that were very much pushing me to do a certain type of care,
Okay.
because they were fearful. They were afraid. And I had to learn to listen to their advice or
Mhm.
their concerns,
Yeah.
but then put that aside and say, I know that they love me and this is coming from a place of love, but
Yeah.
it's not coming from a place of faith or a place of support for what I felt like was best for my situation. Um, and so there were very few people in my life that were like, whatever you decide to do, we're there for you. We're going to support you. We're going to be alongside you. Because they hadn't heard of people that did the type of journey that I did. Like,
Yeah.
usually it's just like the standard of care. You do X, Y, and Z,
Right.
and then you're done with cancer. Whereas mine looked very different. All the IVs and appointments and different modalities that I tried, and like some of the things that I did seemed very strange, and diet changes,
Yeah.
and it's just like, well, that's a lot of work. Why are you doing all these things? And why don't you just do chemo? Or why don't you just do, it seems much easier. And so it took a lot of educating and having hard conversations, and and then coming to a point with the people who were closest in my life and saying, this is what I want to do. This is what
Yeah.
I feel like I need to do for my journey. If you
Mhm.
don't support that, you don't support that, but please keep your opinions to yourself.
Yes.
Um, at the end of the day, I just need you to support me, pray for me, be there for me as I go through this. And I'm trying to make the best decision I can make. And and you have to trust that and trust God ultimately.
Yes. Well, what I'm hearing is very strong boundaries.
Mm,
I'm just curious because I know that there's a lot of people that really struggle with sharing,
mm,
their opinion and sharing kind of their stance. Like they're kind of taking a stand and
mm,
keeping like the
mm-hmm.
boundaries so that it doesn't
Yeah.
infiltrate, what I'm saying? Have you always been like that? Like, did you come into this with those strong, like,
Mm, no.
no?
No, no. So this is funny how, yes, how God, I was meditating and thinking about the verse, how the enemy means things for harm, whereas God, he will turn them for our good. And I
Yeah.
really wrestled with that through my diagnosis, because I was like, I know the enemy's attacking me.
Yeah.
Cancer is not of God, but how is God going to turn this for good? Because everything in my life was affected by cancer. And it was incredibly dark, stressful. I mean, anyone that's gone through cancer knows just the financial burden that it brings on a family, the strain that it brings on a marriage, just your physical, the toll that it takes on your physical health. And I'm like, God, how are you going to use this for good? Like, I do not know where you're going with this, and I don't know how to trust you. And I really wrestled with that. But going through it and in hindsight, just seeing how God used this experience to teach me about boundaries, like how to have boundaries, how to
Yeah.
develop confidence in myself, how to walk in confidence and trust and belief that he was taking care of me, he was speaking to me, he was guiding me, that he would provide for me. So he really did a deep, deep work. And honestly, if it wasn't for having my cancer diagnosis, I don't know if I would have ever fully addressed my past.
Really?
So when I got thyroid cancer, I had, I went through standard of care the first time. And then after that, I was like, well, I don't want to have cancer again. And then I ended up having a recurrence a few years later. And I was like, okay, I did standard of care. I did everything they told me to do. Yeah, cancer came back. what is going on? And that's when I started to do a deep dive into alternative care and holistic care, understanding my body as a whole and what drives cancer. And I met a woman, her name is Megan Van Zyl, and she focuses on spiritual and emotional roots of disease. And so I started working with her on a weekly basis, and we started to really unpack the trauma from my past and my belief systems and understanding what possibilities could have been driving cancer. And I started to really study my body and understand where trauma had affected my body. And ironically, in Chinese medicine, the thyroid, when you have thyroid cancer, they say it's because you've lost your voice. Your voice is trapped, and
Mm.
there's been some trauma to your voice. And it's so ironic when I discovered that and started unpacking my trauma from my past that I truly had lost my voice. From a young age, I experienced sexual abuse, and that was until about 12 years old. I really, because of those experiences and some of the traumas I experienced as a young child, I did lose my voice. I didn't feel like I had the ability to speak up for myself. I didn't have the ability to, my boundaries were so crossed that I didn't know what it was like to have healthy boundaries. What did that look like? And so when I started unpacking and understanding how some of the trauma had driven choices that I had made and how I viewed myself and my belief systems, God started to do a deep inner healing, and I received so much deliverance and and like just profound healing that I didn't know I had needed. And so again, God used the cancer to bring me to a place of realizing that a lot of the unhealthiness, the things that I experienced for years and years and years that went undiagnosed, or doctors had no idea what was going on and just felt like everything was in my head, is like, well, maybe that was the trauma that I hadn't
Yeah.
healed from, the things that I
Yeah.
needed to be delivered from.
Wow. I mean, and that's Romans 8:28, if I'm remembering correctly,
Mm,
right? Turn everything for
mm-hmm,
good. Romans 8:28.
mm-hmm,
I want to just like if you could just maybe unpack a little bit of I know a lot of women, their voices have been kind of, you know, shut down. So maybe
mm,
somebody's listening in today and they're like, yeah, I've experienced that. And maybe they're not even connecting
mm,
how that could be something from their past. But even
mm-hmm,
as maybe as an adult, if you could kind of fast forward with your voice, like what did that look like for you, maybe into your adulthood to have your
mm,
voice? I almost call it like taken captive in a way.
mm, mm. And that's honestly what trauma does, what trauma and abuse. Because over the years, I have worked with women coming out of domestic violence, out of trafficking, out of sexual abuse. And that's one thing that it takes time for them to feel safe enough to actually express what they need, or to even learn to express their emotional needs or what they're feeling. And honestly, there's always this tipping point when I know someone's getting to a place of breakthrough and in healing. All of a sudden, the emotions all start coming out, whether it's tears or the anger or and you're just like, a lot of people are like, what is wrong with that person? But it's, they're actually at a place where they're starting to let themselves
Like,
feel everything and acknowledge everything that has happened, and it starts coming out. And that's when it's like, okay, we're on a good path, we are seeing breakthrough, like this person is starting to experience and find their voice. And that's honestly a journey that many of us who have gone through abuse have had to, through therapy, through the Holy Spirit and his healing, have had to go on a journey to find our voice, to learn how do we speak up for what is important to us or what we need or even what we're feeling, developing that emotional intelligence, because so much of us that was shut down for so long in many of us. And so I think, when we go through a chronic illness or a disease, or yes, it's almost easier to just follow along with whatever the whoever's in authority is telling us to do, because that just seems safer, easier. But what I realized is, like, so much of my life, I I led not expressing what I needed or what I was feeling, like just suppressing my feelings or my needs. And I came to the point of, like, I can't do this any longer, because obviously I'm at a place of disease now. Like, I'm not healthy. I need to get healthy from the inside out. And so that journey has really done that, not just focusing on the external symptoms and trying to heal from cancer externally, but really digging deep into internally what has not been dealt with, what has not been healed. And Father God has just been so gracious and so kind
Oh my
in
gosh.
bringing me to
Well,
healing.
thank you to, did you say her name was Mary?
Megan Van
Megan,
Zyl.
sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so Megan, so she was like a catalyst for a lot of this
Mm-hmm.
healing that you received. And then again,
Mm-hmm.
you now are like what you learned, you're now taking
Mm-hmm.
that, and it was like the torch has been passed and you're both able to do this. I love
Mm-hmm.
it. If
Mm-hmm.
anybody's listening who lives, so we're in the Twin Cities in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I just want to capture this really quick in case somebody hops off. Where can people like learn more about what you're doing as they're listening to? They're like, well, I want to hear more about what she's doing to help.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe could she help me? Can she help me virtually? Can she help me in person? Or is it a both and?
It's a both and. So I have a Facebook group that I started that anyone can join, and I put information on there daily, whether it's educational, whether it's just inspirational. We have a biweekly support group that you can join via our Facebook group, and that's about an hour every 2 weeks. And then I do work at a clinic in Edina called Newbridge Clinic, and I see clients there. And as of right now, that's what I'm doing. I don't know how God is going to grow that, or if He's going to ask me to do more. But at this point, with having young ones and
Yeah.
balancing all the things, that's what I've committed to.
Yeah.
But I definitely, Newbridge, I can be in person, but I typically do Zoom, just because most people, especially when they have chronic illness or cancer, it's harder. You already have a ton of appointments. You don't need another appointment to get to. So it's nice to have the ability just to get on your computer and chat and talk. And so that's generally what I've been offering at this point.
Okay. So anybody in the
Mhm.
world could come see you
Yes,
virtually.
yes,
I love
please,
it.
please
That's
do.
beautiful. So I'll make sure if you guys are listening and you heard, what is the name of your Facebook group?
It's called Whole Story Healing.
Full store healing. Okay. We'll be sure to
Mm-hmm.
link the group link into the show notes and also the Newbridge website as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so as we continue on, today's June 10th, as we're capturing this interview. Where are you now? Like how are you doing health-wise now? How's Beth?
Yeah. Well, I had my first clear scans back in April, so that was really exciting. Yes.
I like.
So, so we had a huge celebration. We were really, really excited to get that news back.
Mm,
So right now we're just continuing to monitor. I'm still continuing to follow a pretty rigid diet, like what I feel like is best for my body at this time, and exercising, and
yeah.
just different lifestyle habits that I have created to try to help my body stay cancer free. And I just felt like, anyone that goes through cancer, there's always, I think you'll forever have that fear in the back of your mind of, like, what if or when will it
Mm,
come back? And that was something, honestly, because the journey had been so long and so hard, that when I got the clear scans and, like, everything's looking great, and it's been, however, almost a year now, that since my last reoccurrence, that it was almost this emotional hurdle I had to get over, of everyone around me was so excited and like, yeah, you're cancer free. But I was stuck still in the trauma of my cancer, and the fear of, well, what if I'm not done? What if I go through it
Yeah.
again. And
Yeah.
so these last
Valid.
number of months, I've been working through that and getting, some deep inner healing in that area. Just processing my cancer journey and trying to heal from that. And then also walking in faith and really strengthening my inner man of being able to speak against the fear, speak against the negativity that comes my way. And the thoughts of the what if this happens, and going to that place of, well, if it does happen, God got me through it this last time, I can do it again.
Yeah.
And so just really building up my spirit,
Mm.
and not getting stuck in the fear, but living my life.
Mm. So good. I can only imagine. Like I haven't walked your journey. And I just feel like whatever, people are listening in today and, maybe they're walking through something right now, or maybe a loved one is walking through
Mm.
a diagnosis, a new diagnosis, or maybe they've, received clear as well. What would you like? Have you had like some Bible verses that have just been really, I call them like anchoring verses, but have you had some Bible verses that have just really been anchoring for you on this journey? And then part two of that is, who is like a Bible figure that has really just been almost like somebody you really look up
Mm.
to help you in this journey, if any?
Mm. Hmm. Hmm. There's a number of verses. Honestly, I got a book on healing, and it just had a ton of verses in it. And I'm so sorry, I can't think of the name of the book right now,
That's okay.
but
Well,
it
well,
was it
I'll
was
get it
basically on
later.
physical healing.
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
And
and
we'll
then we
put it
can
in the
post
show
that.
notes. Yeah.
Yes. So
Mhm.
there were two particular ones on healing,
Okay.
and had a number of verses and then prayers attached to it. And
Okay.
that's what I used throughout my diagnosis. Every morning I would read one of the chapters, because I
Yeah.
was wrestling with, does God heal? Can he heal? Can he heal me? Maybe
Yeah.
he'll heal this person or that person, but will he heal me? And understanding, just trying to really understand, well, what does the Bible say about healing? So I
Yeah.
had a girlfriend give me two different books, and they were so life giving. And so I just encourage everyone. And I did that myself too. Before I got those books, I just started going through the Bible and looking
Yeah.
up any word that I could find on healing, and
Okay.
reading those verses and meditating on those verses. And one of the verses that I loved was in Isaiah, and it said, I will restore your soul and bring healing to all your wounds. And that's what I clung to through my whole journey, because I knew that if my soul was healed, my body would be healed. And that was what God spoke to me from the beginning of my journey. He said, I'm healing you from the inside out. So when I found that verse, I was like, oh, this is my verse.
Okay.
He is healing my soul. He is restoring my body. He is healing all of my wounds. And so that was my primary verse. And there's just so many characters in the Bible. Like, as you read throughout scripture, all of them went through adversity.
Yeah.
All of them had to overcome life
Mhm.
challenges to become the person of God that He had designed them to be, and to fulfill their calling. And particularly Joseph, I always think of Joseph. I've gotten that prophetic word over my life many times, but it was like, just the things that he had to overcome and endure, and the seasons that he went through, that it'd be like, well, where is God? Like, what is he doing right now? Like, why has he
This
left
makes
me
sense.
here?
Yeah.
How does
Right.
this make sense to
Yeah.
this
Right.
story? Because I think, God gave him that initial dream,
Right.
but then he had to go through years and years of trials
Mhm.
before he ever saw, well, oh, this is who I was created to be. This is what you had for me, and how you're going to use me. And so he had to cling on to that
Right.
hope that
Right.
God had, and that word, that dream, all those years. And that's something in my own journey. When I got my diagnosis, and many people around me were afraid and worried and concerned, and I had to tell them, I was like, no, this is not, cancer is not my story. Like, this is not the end of my story, because God has already spoken to me. Like, He
Mhm.
has already given me a calling and a destiny.
Mm-hmm.
And he had given me a very clear prophetic dream and many words of knowledge up to that point. And I was like, I'm going to go back to my journal and I'm just going to read over those things because Satan was working so hard to make
Mm-hmm.
me feel like that was the end of my story. And
Mm-hmm.
sorry, it's just all
No,
so
I'm
fresh still.
feeling it too. Like,
Yeah, it's all so fresh here. I'm just like a hot mess. And of course, you're recording.
like you're good. This is part of
Oh
it.
my
Like
gosh.
you're gonna make me start making my eyes sweat too.
um, and so I think often that when God puts a calling on our lives,
Hmm.
when he gives us a vision, when he
Hmm.
gives us a word of
Hmm.
what he has called us to, the enemy is going to come in with
Yeah.
every tactic to discourage us, to
Yeah.
confuse us,
Mhm.
to um, really sidetrack us and
Yeah.
keep us from that.
Mhm.
And so I had to really grow and exercise my faith in that
Mhm.
area and learn how to stand against those tactics and
Mhm.
to speak life and destiny over myself, even when no one else was. And
So,
so,
yeah.
yeah. So I just challenge anyone that's going through a really difficult situation,
Hmm.
whether it's cancer or um, something in your marriage or something with your child,
Yeah.
ask God for a word.
Yeah.
Ask Him for a word of knowledge, a dream,
Mhm.
like someone to come and,
Yeah.
pray
Speak
over
to God.
them, something, because that can sustain you and carry you through the most difficult things.
So true. Like
Yeah.
I feel you on that. Like and just like you, like we
Yeah.
so many of us have been given visions for things
Yeah.
of the future that it's like
Mm-hmm.
how is this gonna happen? We
Yeah.
just really have to hold
Yep.
on and like Joseph, yeah, he was from the pit to
Yeah.
the palace and a lot of times it's like, how does this make sense? And I think
Yeah.
sometimes we just have to like, rather than that question, what would the question be that maybe you would encourage somebody to ask rather than why
Mm-hmm.
or how does this make sense?
Mm-hmm.
How is this going to work?
Mm-hmm.
Would you have
Mm-hmm.
maybe another
Yeah.
question for somebody to
Yeah.
ask?
I would say instead of asking why, which is completely reasonable
Yeah,
in the
totally.
Psalms, David did
Right.
that all the
Right.
time.
Yeah.
So if you're asking, why do I have to go through this? That's completely
Mhm.
reasonable. And I believe that God will meet you there and he will be so kind and gracious as you navigate and ask all the questions.
Mhm.
But we spend so much energy sometimes stuck in the
Yeah.
why me, and it
Mhm.
it really postures our heart in a way of being the victim
Mhm.
and operating out of a victim spirit.
Mhm.
And so, rather, I would challenge anyone that's going through a really difficult circumstance, posture your heart in a way that's saying, God, how do you want to use this?
Yeah.
How are you going to use my story to bring healing into someone else's story? And I I mean, I did a ton of study and research on survivorship in cancer and what were the leading causes for someone to survive a cancer diagnosis. And one of the top things was being in a place of gratefulness, daily
Mhm.
gratefulness. The other was being surrounded by community, supportive community. And the other was having a vision for your
Mhm.
life and
Wow.
not stopping life based on your diagnosis, but keep walking towards your vision. And that's something that I just challenge everyone. If God has placed a passion in your heart or a ministry idea, or you have a family, whatever that may be, that brings you life, that brings you joy and fulfillment, run towards that and keep running towards that, no matter what diagnosis is thrown at you or what life circumstances is thrown at you.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Could you just repeat the three you said gratitude. I just want people to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Go grab a piece of
Yeah.
paper, write it down. Tell us
Yes, the
again.
top three that I came across in all my research. The first one was living a life of gratitude, so daily gratitude.
Mhm.
And then the other was community, surrounding yourself with community and support.
Mhm.
And then the other was um, having a vision for your life, like having a purpose.
Mhm.
Make sure that you find your purpose, your God given reason for being here on this earth.
Oh, good. Well, and it's interesting because usually at the end of the podcast, I feel like this has just been so powerful. You're one that I feel like needs to come back again.
Oh,
I,
thank
I
you.
would usually
I'll
ask,
have tissues next time.
you're good. Trust me. Like this is
Oh.
real and raw. Hope Unlocked is real and raw.
Mm,
So at the end of every show, I ask somebody, whoever's on the show to give a word,
mhm,
and a word of encouragement, word of wisdom,
mm,
anything else that you wanted to share. I feel like you just shared a
mm,
lot, but do you have anything else that you would speak over that one who we're doing this for today, who's listening in?
Yeah, I had written something down that I really felt like was so, so good. Let's see if I can find it or not.
Yeah,
If not, I'll probably just do a prayer because
yeah.
let's see here. So, yes. So this is the verse that came to mind. It's Isaiah 43:5-7. And it says, no matter how far, and this is not the actual verse, but this is just a synopsis of the verse basically. But no
Okay.
matter how far you have drifted or how scattered your life feels, restoration is possible. God gathers what is broken and brings the isolated back into community and to purpose. And then the verse that he gives is, see, I am doing a new thing. Know it springs up. Do not you perceive that? And that's Isaiah 43:18-19. And so I just declare and I believe over everyone that is listening that God is doing a new thing in your life. This diagnosis isn't meant to define you. It's not meant to keep you from all the good that God has for you. And I really believe that He's breaking things off of you right now in Jesus' name, and that He is going to allow you to walk in bolder confidence of who He's called you to be, and that He's going to really create a shift in your perspective of what you're going through.
Beth, thank you.
Yeah, thank
This has
you.
been
Thank you for having
so
me.
powerful. I feel like I would love to have you on longer, but I have to wrap it up today. But
Yes, no, I
um,
understand.
I am going to close with the Hope Unlocked anchoring verse, and it's may the
Mm,
God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that by the power of the Holy Spirit you may abound in hope. And I just believe that we have just been given a very strong IV of hope today from Beth.
mm,
So thank you. And then could you just share again the best way for people to get in touch with you?
yes. So if you go on Facebook and you go to groups, look up Whole Story Healing, join our
Okay.
group, and you can definitely personal message me, and I will be more than happy to get back to you.
Okay. Sounds good. And again, I'll have everything in the show notes. The
Okay.
books, we'll get those
Yes.
books too. So otherwise, thank you so much, Beth, for being on today. I'll be back with another episode next week. Thanks, listeners.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.